We start this journey by checking the news. No matter what channel I flipped to, it all seemed to be the same thing. Neighbors and families seemingly eating each other like wild animals out of the blue. I don't know what's causing this, but I did know I should get out of town as soon as possible. If I was going to skip town, I would need to take what remaining food I had left in the fridge. Frozen food would need to be cooked before I could go. I kept my meat cleaver close at all times just in case anyone or anything decided to knock on the door. While I waited for the meat to cook, I started to get nervous and checked the window just to make sure I was still safe. For now, at least. Then began to stare deeply into the mirror to calm my nerves and mentally prepare for what is to come. After that, I checked on the meat, but it was only thawed. So I decided to check on the neighbors to see if anyone else was planning on leaving. Safety in numbers, after all. After seeing what appeared to be a very bloody and ill man, I ran back into my house and waited to see if he was following me or not. After a few moments, I looked outside and he attempted to bite me, but I shoved him back until he lost his footing and caved his skull in with my boot. Afterwards, I took what useful things I could find on him. After looting what I could, I checked on the meat once again, but it was still raw. Disappointed, I went in my room and took my gun from the closet, and pondered on why I owned a bra. After leaving my room, I noticed that my back was hurting. I was carrying too much, but had little choice. As I checked on the meat one final time, it was all burned. Gordon Ramsay would not be proud. I took it anyway, for it was all the food I had. After thinking for quite some time on what my next move should be, I did some practice swings and started making my way to the other house, for I would need more food if I was going to sustain my fat ass lifestyle. After majestically leaping the fence, I continued on my way quietly to the next house, not noticing the Karen quickly approaching. After giving her a few well-placed bitch slaps, she fell to the ground. I then continued on my way and did yet another majestic leap over a fence. After creeping my way closer to the house, I opened the door. To my surprise, it set off the alarm. Attempting to flee, I carelessly let one of them cut me before taking it out. I then jumped the fence and went straight to the next house, knowing the horde is close behind me. The door was locked, but the window luckily was not. After entering the house, I quickly made work of the residence, and then fled before more could surround me. After running out the door, more and more of them showed up. The fence was too high to jump, so I was forced to walk down to its end, taking some more unnecessary damage along the way. After finally escaping from them, I made my way to the next house. Windows were my new way in if I wanted to avoid alarms in the future. After getting in, I started to loot the place, but the first door I opened had an unexpected surprise for me. They got a few good hits in before I got the upper hand. If I was going to survive the first day, I would need to be more careful. I used what I could to stop the bleeding, but without a first aid kit, all I could really do was delay it. I went straight to work taking anything of use and dropping unneeded items. I left my gun in the closet to lower the weight I had to carry. I would need to travel light now that I am more wounded. I rested for a few hours in hopes it would heal my wounds, but all it did was infect them worse. I knew that stain looked suspicious. I then made my way outside to check if the nearby bin had anything useful. After finding nothing and no hoard to be found, I decided it'd be best to go back inside. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. I had to kill them fast before the noise alerted the horde. A few well-placed hits and they were finally down, but they managed to reopen the wounds I'd just patched up. With no other choice, I used the last of my torn cloth as a wrap for the wounds. As soon as I started to leave, even more attacked me, causing the wounds to worsen. As I once again had to use the dead's clothes to wrap my wounds, I knew I had to go look for a first aid if I wanted to survive. So I made my way down the block to the more fancy part of the neighborhood in hopes that one of the houses would have one. After turning the corner, I was ambushed by yet another freak. After dealing with him, I tried to open the window, but it was locked tight. I then made my way down to a broken window, and I jumped through it and failed to sneak up on the infected inside. I foolishly cut myself on the glass and tried my best to heal the wounds, but they were too great, and the blood would not stop before my heart did.